So hello and welcome guys, and welcome to this live session of CMA Inter-Direct Taxes. And the question under consideration which we all were deliberating for past 1 week was house property. The income from house property is a income which is taxed on a notional basis, which means that income which is derived from any house property, the actual income is definitely subject to tax. But if there is some amount which is lesser than the fair rent, then fair rent will be taxable as income from house property. So this is a very peculiar situation where the actual income is not getting taxed, but in case of house property, the notional income is getting taxed. Now, sir, what do you mean by notional? Guys, notional means hypothetical. Notional means something which is not existence, but still it is taxed. So after you hear this thought out, you must be thinking, how unfair, sir? How can Income Tax Act be so unfair? How can it tax something which is not even earned by the assessee? But that is the harsh reality. House property income is based on fair rent concept, which means that if your actual rent which is received is very, very less, but the rent which should have been received by you in the in a very, very fair manner, considering the properties which are surrounding that house property, which you have given to your tenants, then guys, you will be taxed on fair rent rather than actual rent. So this is the concept of notional rent, which we have learned, which we have understood in the chapter of income from house property. Now, a question which I asked to all of you was that whether notional interest on interest-free security deposit be also be taxed under any of the heads. So, there's a concept of interest-free security deposit, which means that tenant will give some amount of security to the landlord, and that security will be returned back to the tenant after the lease period. That usually is interest free. Now, if that security was kept in some bank, in some financial institution, guys, then that security would have earned some bare minimum amount of interest, say equivalent to the fixed deposit interest, which is given by the bank. And hence, in such a situation, the question arises is that since house property as a whole, as a source of income, as a head of income, is based on notional income concept, so can we tax interest on security deposit, which is interest-free security deposit? Can we tax that interest also on a notional basis? That is the question which is which merits consideration. And there is a very famous case law, CIT Delhi versus Moni Kumar Subba. So this case law is pronounced by the Delhi High Court, and a special bench was constituted to answer this particular question. And this bench gave answer to this question, whether notional interest can be taxable in case of income from house property. Guys, the answer is a clear no. The reason behind the negative answer of the High Court is that for taxing notional income, there has to be specific provision in the Income Tax Act. There has to be specific provision in law. Unless and until there is a specific provision in law, notional income cannot be taxed. Only real income can be taxed in hands of an assessee, but notional income can be taxed only in those situations which are specifically given in law. Section 23 clearly states that the fair rent should be taxed in hands of the assessee. It nowhere talks about security deposit. It nowhere talks about interest on security deposit. So any other kind of income, whether it is notional or it is any security deposit interest or any kind of notional income, cannot be taxed in absence of specific provisions in law. So law should have specific provisions to tax the notional income. If specific provisions are not there, then law cannot tax any income. In case of security deposit interest, there is no specific provision. We have studied all the provisions of house property, guys, and in house property, at least this head, there is no provision which is there for notional interest. So notional interest cannot be taxed. Now the question arises, can notional interest be taxed as PGBP? Guys, over here we are talking about house property income, which means I'm assuming that I'm not doing business in that particular house property. So the question of taxing this particular income as PGBP does not arise. So sir, last option remains, income from other sources. Can we tax this particular income in the residuary head, which is income from other sources? Again, the answer is no. Why? Because income from other sources head is used for cases which have not been considered, the income which has not been considered under any other head can be taxable in income from other sources. But listen to this point very, very carefully. Interest on notional security deposit which has been given by a tenant to a landlord, this kind of security deposit and the notional interest thereon is definitely an income from house property. And income from house property has already been specifically dealt with in a particular chapter in some sections. If law has deliberately not put any section which pertains to chargeability of interest on the security deposit, then guys, law has already taken a considered stand that interest on security deposit should not be taxable if it is notional. So don't say that the income from notional interest has not been considered under any other head, that's why it should go to other sources. Don't say this. This is a wrong statement. Why? Because income from house property has already been considered in house property section 23, 24, 25, 26. There, house property income has already been considered, and the law has deliberately excluded or has ignored interest from security deposit. This is a considered decision which the law has taken. So I cannot say that since notional interest on security deposit has not been taxed under any other head, I will tax it under other sources. That is not a valid plea. That is not a valid argument. So the net result is that notional interest on interest-free security deposit cannot be taxed in either of the income heads. Now, what was the court's view? Court's view was that section 23(1)(a) is relevant for determining the income from house property and concerns determination of annual letting value of such property. That provision talks of the sum for which property might reasonably be expected to let out from year to year. So the clear indication is that this section deals with the sum of rent and not of interest on security deposit. Clear as it can be, this contemplates that the possible rent that property might fetch. So what does section 23 talks about? The rent which property might fetch, and certainly not the notional interest in fixed deposit that may be placed by the tenant with the landlord in connection with letting out of such property. So no, the interest on notional interest, I'm not talking about real interest. If it is a real interest, then definitely it will be taxable. But if it is a notional interest, it will not be taxable under any of the heads. Further, it is not taxable as income from PGBP or other sources. So I've already given you the reason why this income should not be taxed under PGBP and other sources. Guys, the moot point is, the most important concept is, for taxing any notional income, first of all, taxing notional income is a hardship. It is a very harsh step. It is a very strong step which Income Tax Act takes. So it's a very, very strong step. So first of all, taxing a notional income is in itself a difficult proposition, not so pro-assessee proposition. On the top of it, that notional income cannot be taxed in a lucid manner. Lucid means open-ended manner. You cannot say that every notional income I will tax in hands of the assessee. No. Notional income can be taxed only if there is a specific provision in law to tax notional income. However, in case of real income, you can say that any income which is not considered under any other head shall be taxable under other sources. You can say that. But in case of notional income, you cannot say that. Therefore, the conclusion which the Delhi High Court gave in the case of CIT Delhi versus Moni Kumar Subba, this is a case law pertaining to year, I think 1994, 95, 96. Those were the years to which this case law pertains to, but it's a very important judgment. Okay, 2011 is the year when this judgment finally came up. 1997-94, there is another judgment which is in the case of Satya Rani, which preceded this case law. And in case of that Satya Rani, same proposition was upheld. And following that case law, this case law came in 2011, which upheld the proposition which was given in CIT versus Satya Rani. CIT versus Satya Rani was 94-95, and this case law has come up in 2011, which has reiterated the same principle. Notional interest cannot be taxed for security deposit if it is notional in nature in absence of any express provision in law. So yes, this was the point which we were discussing in the discussion which we had during the week, and this week I got a few answers, but the analysis and the research work was not done by all of you in a very detailed manner. So guys, always remember that once you are analyzing about certain things in direct taxes, you have to research a lot. You have to spend at least 1 hour, 2 hours just scrolling through the case laws which have come by, or the articles. So direct tax and indirect tax are two subjects in your syllabus for which you will find ample literature. Ample literature is available on Google, articles, case laws, some opinions, expert opinions. You will find them in ample quantity. But yes, this week you didn't work hard. You did not research upon this particular aspect. I definitely expect you to research upon these aspects very carefully, because guys, it will enhance your analytical skills and your understanding of law. Okay, so yes, today is the test of house property chapter, and we are now starting the test. So guys, all your cameras should be on. You should be ready with your registers in your in front of you. Question number 1. State whether the following are exempted or not. You have to write yes or no. So you have to state whether, according to house property sections, these are exempted or not. I'm sending the question in the group as well. You have been given 3 house properties, and guys, do remember, vacancy period is also given, which means properties were vacant for a part of the year. Since properties were vacant for a part of the year, there is a possibility that RER is less than the fair rent. The ARR is less than the RER because of reason of vacancy. So there is a special provision dealing with this aspect. Please take into account that provision while solving this question. How many minutes do you get? You get 10 minutes to solve the, okay, 15 minutes to get this question solved. 15 minutes. I have also sent the question on the group. Interest up to 31st March 2020 was rupees 2,20,000. And for the period from 1st April 2020 to 31st December 2020, rupees 2,30,000. Rupees 1,40,000 towards interest for the balance 3 months remain unpaid. The construction of the building was completed on 31st December 2020. The building was let out with effect from 1st January 2021 for a monthly rent of 90,000. Municipal tax of rupees 1,20,000 was paid by cash on 10th January 2021. He repaid rupees 1,90,000 towards principal during the previous year 2021, of which he had paid 1,20,000 up to 31st December 2020. The municipal value of the property is rupees 9 lakhs. Compute the income from house property of Tarun for the assessment year 21-22. Okay, so this is the correct answer. चैरिटेबल पर्पस के लिए कोई भी हाउस प्रॉपर्टी यूज होगी, एग्जेम्प्ट होगी. जम्मू एंड कश्मीर में एग्जेम्प्ट नहीं होगी. लद्दाख इज नॉट अ पार्ट ऑफ जम्मू एंड कश्मीर, इट इज अ सेपरेट यूनियन टेरिटरी. सिर्फ लद्दाख के लिए एग्जेम्पशन है, जम्मू एंड कश्मीर के लिए एग्जेम्पशन नहीं है. हाउस प्रॉपर्टी हेल्ड फॉर बिजनेस एग्जेम्प्ट होगी. अगर आपका कोई एक फार्म हाउस है वो एग्जेम्प्ट होगा. एक्स रूलर का पैलेस एग्जेम्प्ट होता है, लेकिन एक शर्त है शर्त यह है वो लेट आउट नहीं होना चाहिए। अगर वो पैलेस लेट आउट हो जाता है तो वो एग्जेम्पशन से बाहर आ जाता है। सो लेट आउट पैलेस ऑफ एन एक्स रूलर, आंसर इज नो, इट विल नॉट बी exempt. ओके, तो गाइज दिस वाज द टेस्ट ऑन हाउस प्रॉपर्टी। तो एक बात ध्यान से सुनना मेरी, जरूरी नहीं है कि टेस्ट में अगर आपके बहुत अच्छे मार्क्स नहीं आ रहे इसका मतलब आप पढ़ाई नहीं कर रहे। डायरेक्ट टैक्स इज ऑल अबाउट प्रैक्टिस। ठीक है, आप एक बार करते हो, 2 बार करते हो, 3 बार करते हो, आप प्रैक्टिस जब तक नहीं करोगे ना तब तक कुछ इंट्रिकेट चीजें हमेशा मिस आउट रहेंगी, तब तक कुछ इंट्रिकेट चीजों को आप नहीं समझ पाओगे। अब जैसे आज का आपने टेस्ट दिया, तो आप जब आप दोबारा एक बार प्रैक्टिस करोगे सारे के सारे क्वेश्चंस की, तब आपको पता लगेगा टेस्ट के अंदर कौन कौन सी चीजें पूछी गई थी जो आपने के दौरान नहीं किया। सो घबराना मत, डिमोटिवेट मत होना कि सर हमारे तो मार्क्स ही नहीं आ रहे डायरेक्ट टैक्स में, हम तो कुछ परफॉर्म ही नहीं कर पा रहे अच्छा डायरेक्ट टैक्स में, हम तो पढ़ते भी हैं फिर भी नहीं हो पा रहा। ऐसा कुछ नहीं है। डायरेक्ट टैक्स इन इटसेल्फ इज अ difficult subject, so just don't worry if you are not scoring good marks, just don't be demotivated। डरने की कोई बात नहीं है, घबराने की कोई बात नहीं है। आप इसी तरह बस लगातार तैयारी करते रहो। सोचो जरा, आउट ऑफ द 70 people in the group, you are the only 12 people who are actually attempting the tests and who are giving tests regularly. So this already has made a niche for all of you, and you have already shown that yes, you are committed towards your studies and committed towards your live sessions. So डरना मत, अगर मार्क्स थोड़े से कम भी हैं तो इट्स ओके। हाँ, हाउस प्रॉपर्टी एक छोटा चैप्टर है और मैंडेटरी क्वेश्चन आता है 8 मार्क्स का हाउस प्रॉपर्टी में से हर बार। तो आपको अच्छे से प्रिपेयर करना हाउस प्रॉपर्टी इसलिए जरूरी है क्योंकि कम पढ़ने में आपको बहुत ज्यादा बेनिफिट मिलेगा। तो ठीक है, डरना मत। एक बार दोबारा जब रिवीजन करोगे ना हाउस प्रॉपर्टी की, तब और अच्छे से करना, एंड देन वी कैन हैव अनदर सेशन ऑफ टेस्ट फॉर हाउस प्रॉपर्टी। बट अब जो हम अगला चैप्टर स्टार्ट करने जा रहे हैं वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चैप्टर है और वो एग्जाम पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से बहुत ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है क्योंकि उसकी वेटेज बहुत ज्यादा है एग्जाम्स में। वो चैप्टर का नाम है प्रॉफिट्स एंड गेन्स फ्रॉम बिजनेस एंड प्रोफेशन। सो आज रात को ही मैं इनिशियल 2-3 वीडियोस पीजीबीपी की ऑनलाइन गूगल ड्राइव पे अपलोड कर दूंगा। कल से आप लोग पीजीबीपी करना शुरू करना, और जब भी टाइम मिले, जब भी अपॉर्चुनिटी मिले, जरूर रिवीजन करना सैलरी के चैप्टर की, हाउस प्रॉपर्टी के चैप्टर की। कभी भी प्रैक्टिस क्वेश्चन, सैलरी में मैंने प्रैक्टिस क्वेश्चन पार्ट 2 अपलोड किया है, तो प्रैक्टिस क्वेश्चंस करना। और हाउस प्रॉपर्टी में मैंने अभी एक प्रैक्टिस क्वेश्चंस का सेट डाला है, वो प्रैक्टिस करना शुरू करना। और कभी भी जब भी मन करे, डायरेक्ट टैक्स एक कितना इंटरेस्टिंग सब्जेक्ट है, कितना कंप्यूटेशन बेस्ड सब्जेक्ट है, जब भी मन करे कोई भी टॉपिक उठाओ, कोई भी एक छोटा सा टॉपिक आप कवर कर सकते हो। फॉर एग्जांपल सैलरी को 3 पार्ट्स में डिवाइड कर दो, अलाउंसेस, परक्विजिट्स और रिटायरमेंट बेनिफिट्स। कभी भी मन करे अलाउंसेस उठाओ, उसके क्वेश्चंस कर लो सारे के सारे, परक्विजिट्स के क्वेश्चंस कर लो सारे के सारे। इस तरह आपकी प्रैक्टिस बहुत ज्यादा होती रहेगी इन डायरेक्ट टैक्स, एंड धीरे धीरे करके हम लोग डेफिनेटली अपने गोल को अचीव करेंगे। ध्यान दिलाना चाहता हूं, नवंबर एंड होने पे आ गया है। 25 नवंबर इज वेयर वी आर सिटिंग एट राइट नाउ, एंड कॉस्टिंग या फाइनेंशियल अकाउंटिंग, आपकी दोनों में से एक सब्जेक्ट ऑलमोस्ट फिनिश हो जाना चाहिए था। अगर नहीं हुआ है तो प्लीज थोड़ा सा स्पीड बढ़ाओ। आई नो कॉलेज चल रहा है, आई नो बहुत सारी और चीजें चल रही होंगी, लेकिन ये भी चलाना बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है। हमें अपना फाइनेंशियल अकाउंटिंग या कॉस्ट अकाउंटिंग को खत्म करना पड़ेगा ताकि हम अपना नेक्स्ट सब्जेक्ट उठा सकें। ग्रुप 1 में 4 सब्जेक्ट्स हैं और हमारा इनिशियली टारगेट था दिसंबर एंड तक ग्रुप 1 को खत्म करना, बट कोई बात नहीं, अगर ग्रुप 1 हमारा जनवरी मिड तक भी खत्म हुआ या जनवरी एंड तक भी खत्म हुआ तो कोई बात नहीं, हम काम चला लेंगे। लेकिन इसके बियॉन्ड नहीं जा सकता, मतलब अब ना डू एंड डाई वाली सिचुएशन है। अब जोर लगाना है बहुत तगड़ा वाला। दिसंबर का जो मंथ होगा वो प्रोबेबली आपके कॉलेज में भी वेकेशन होंगी, आपके क्रिसमस के बहुत सारी छुट्टियां होंगी, न्यू ईयर पे छुट्टियां होंगी। प्लीज उनको वेस्ट मत करना, उनको कॉस्टिंग और फाइनेंशियल अकाउंटिंग 2 सब्जेक्ट्स अपने खत्म करने में जी जान लगा देना, और साइड बाय साइड रोज का 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day पीजीबीपी में भी इन्वेस्ट करते रहना। पीजीबीपी इज अ बिग चैप्टर जो आई थिंक 2 हफ्ते या 3 हफ्ते चलेगा हमारा। तो इसमें मैं इकट्ठा टेस्ट नहीं लूंगा एक बार, इसमें मैं पीसेस में टेस्ट लूंगा, थोड़े थोड़े पोर्शंस में टेस्ट लूंगा। इस सैटरडे संडे टेस्ट नहीं होगा, इस सैटरडे संडे कोई लाइव सेशन नहीं होगा। अब अगले सैटरडे संडे हम लोग लाइव सेशन रखेंगे या वीक में कभी लाइव सेशन रखेंगे। तो ठीक है, दैट्स ऑल फॉर दिस पर्टिकुलर सेशन, एंड आई विल बी शेयरिंग द slide deck of today's session with you all in the group. So yes, that's all for today's session. कोई भी अगर आपको डाउट है प्लीज आस्क मी ऑफलाइन. आयुष, तुम्हारी एक क्वेरी पेंडिंग है जो मुझे ऑफलाइन कंसिडर करनी है. जस्ट टॉक टू मी ऑफलाइन. एंड ऑल द वेरी बेस्ट एंड हैप्पी स्टार्टिंग.
Thank you, sir.